and welcome to my channel. Today I'll be showing you how to make a face mask. Obviously this is not a replacement for a real medical face mask, but there's a lot of unknowns about the virus, so it's starting to be recommended that everyone wears some sort of facial mask. So I've been putting off making face masks for a while because there was a lot of debate about the whole thing. But I started seeing more about it in the news, and so I decided that I should do my own research and start making my own mask. Also, where I live, masks are going to start being required when you go out in public, so that's why I decided that it's time to finally make them. Before I made my mask, I did a lot of research on what's the best type of material, what's the best shape, and all that stuff. So I'll link a website that I found really interesting about comparing different household fabrics and which one would be the best to use for an actual face mask. So for my video, I'll be showing you how to make a face mask like this one. It's pretty simple. It's a really basic pattern, just a rectangle of fabric, 2 pieces of fabric. This one only took about 30 minutes to make in total, and I've made nearly 15 so far, and I'll be making a lot more. You can get this pattern from Joann's or make your own. It's super simple, it's just a rectangle. I did try out a different pattern from Joann's. I did this one that has the curve. I did not like this one as much because when you put it up to your face, it kind of doesn't fit as well as it should. Ignore the missing strap. But I just felt like this one kind of felt weird as a shape. But if you like the shape, go for it. It does have the curve right here to help fit the curve of the face, I guess. But one thing that I found really important was including some sort of little wire in the nose piece. You can use the bread ties, actual wire, pipe cleaners, all that type of stuff. That way you get it really secure, because that's probably one of the most important things, is having the mask closed off. That's a really big issue I've seen about other people's masks, is they think that it's covering their face, but you have all the gaps everywhere, and that just defeats the entire purpose of it. So you can also, if you really wanted to, you could add one for the bottom to keep this part closed off, but as long as you get the strap size right, then it should be pretty tight on the bottom part. You might have some extra fabric, but as long as it touches the jawline, then you should be good. So the last couple things I want to say is that you want to use some sort of cotton fabric, because this will be the best for filtering stuff but still allowing you to breathe. And also, if you can't sew or don't own a sewing machine, you can either hand stitch everything. It's nothing too complicated, just pretty much straight stitches overall. Also, if you can't sew at all, you can just use fabric glue. It's a pretty simple project, doesn't require a whole lot, and fabric glue would do the trick. Lastly, I've seen some people using interfacing to give the mask a stiffer fit. However, I've also seen that some interfacing isn't good to breathe in, so I wouldn't be sure if I recommend this. I could be completely wrong and they're all safe, but just as a caution, make sure if you put any sort of filter, make sure it's safe to breathe through. And now, without further ado, let's get right into the video. Okay, so if you're making your own pattern, you'll need a piece of paper and a roller. Measure out a rectangle that is 9 by 6 inches. You can also find this pattern on Joann's, I'm pretty sure, that you can print out, and I'm pretty sure that they also have a child version that's a little smaller. Go ahead and cut out your rectangle. Now place your pattern on some fabric. You'll want to cut out 2 rectangles for each mask. You can either fold the fabric to cut through 2 layers, but I also recommend cutting out 2 different fabrics. That way you can tell which is the inside of the mask and which is the outside. This will help prevent contamination for when you actually put it to use. Here you can see I'm actually cutting out 4 layers of fabric in total, but this is because I'm making multiple masks, so it is also helpful to fold the fabric if you plan on making many. The next step is to add straps to the mask. Now you can do this many different ways. This first way I'm showing you is using bias tape to make straps that you can tie for the mask. You want to do this by placing them about a ½ inch away from the edge of each end of the fabric. Then place the second piece of fabric on top, right sides together. Go ahead and pin the straps in place. Make sure that they do not move from the original place that you put them. If you do not have bias tape, you can also make your own straps to tie from other fabric by cutting them into long strips. T-shirt or other stretchy knit material is also really good because they stretch, and that way it makes it super easy to tie. Once you have it all pinned, then you want to sew all around the edges, but make sure to leave a small gap on one side. Now another thing you can do is use elastic instead of straps for ties. Now you do this in the same way, but you want to make sure that the elastic is not twisted. Also, my elastic for this mask was a little too big. I had cut it to be about 10 inches, but you really only need about 6 for an adult mask. Probably even smaller for a child's mask. When you're sewing, start at the edge of the gap and don't forget to backstitch. I also did some backstitching along the elastic part just to give it some extra strength. Also for the corners, make sure you pivot, lifting up the presser foot but leaving the needle in, that way you get sharp corners. Go ahead and trim the seam allowance on all the sides except for the one that has the gap. Make sure you cut the elastic a little shorter, that way that it's not bulky, and also make sure you cut all the corners so that way the corners, once you flip it, do not have bulkiness either. Now you want to iron the mask flat. I didn't show it in the video, but I like to use like an old paintbrush to really poke out all the seams, especially the corners. I'm sure there's like a real tool you could use, or you can just use a pencil or a paintbrush or anything that's pretty similar. Now the most important step is to add some sort of wire to the mask to close the top gap. I'm using for this mask like a bread tie, but you can also use like a pipe cleaner or any other sort of wire that's similar. It only needs to be about 4 to 5 inches probably in length, but you just want to mark where to sew and then sew sort of like a casing for it, and you can put the wire inside, that way you get it to the right size, just like this. Just be sure not to go over the wire with your needle. Make sure there's plenty of space for it. Now that you've sewn your casing, you can see the mask will now bend to whatever shape you put it in. The last step is to add pleats to the mask. You want them to be about equal size and do this on both sides of the mask. The overlap for my mask ended up being about a ½ inch. Once you've pinned your pleats, go ahead and sew down each side of the mask. That way you catch the folds. Don't forget to backstitch. This step should also close the gap that we had left open earlier. So here is what your final mask will look like. And here are some of the other ones that I have created. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you learned something about how to make a face mask or found this entertaining. Also, if you do not know, or if you cannot make your own face mask, you don't have supplies, I am selling them for $3 to $5 per mask. I'll leave my business email in the description, or if you know me, you can always contact me through my social medias. But thanks again for watching my video. Stay safe. Thank you.